I'm going to skip identifying and just put the bracers on.
Oh, nice. It's a custom item I made. It's called the Totally Balanced and Not Cursed Bracer, and you cannot take it off. Makes all your hits criticals with max damage, and you can never regain hit points.
Whoa, that seems super imbalanced. The item card says I have a plus 20 to hit, and all my attacks do 10d10 damage. When did you make this? Has this been playtested at all?
Well, you put it on, so it's yours now. So I made it before our session while I was like just waking up, so I'm pretty sure it's balanced. Also, the enemies have it too, so...
We're gonna need some help here.
Let's talk to Logan the GM and get some advice on making some better magic items. Hey!
I'm your host, Sarah, and...
I'm your other host, Morgan.
We are two sisters.
By marriage.
Who love to talk about stories.
From writing fiction and creating elaborate plotlines in D&D.
To creating custom magic items that enhance your games and are actually fun to play with.
We're out of initiative. There are tons of magic items to choose from in D&D, but sometimes it's just not what your party needs. Today, we're talking to Logan the GM about making custom magic items to enhance your game as a creative outlet and to make your table extra magical. Thank you so much for joining us, Logan.
Thanks for having me. Oh, you might have been a cable just flew by, but that's okay. Hi, I'm excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you.
Yes,
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience with TTRPGs?
Sure. So again, I'm Logan the GM or DM, depending on where you look at me on the internet. I'm trying to make sure that you can find me. I am a guy that mostly talks about mostly D&D, but I am slowly but surely talking about any other game I can get my hands on. Most recently is actually the Lancer RPG. So, if anyone likes mecha games, that's what I'm totally into right now. My experience is, let's see, at this point, I have at least 8 years, I think. I was really looking into it, of experience with tabletop games, 7 years of GMing or DMing Dungeons and Dragons. I guess DM is in the right prerogative when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, but I've been running it for a while. I know 5e, and I've gotten a good hold of it. I'm not anywhere near the expert level that everyone wishes that they'll be, but that's because I don't think you can ever be an expert. But, because you're always learning, right?
Always, yeah.
Yeah, agree. Well, today you're our expert. We're really excited. I mentioned to you when we chatted previously that I started following you on Twitter, and I just really enjoyed your takes. Really enjoyed the sort of discussion that you started and the way you talk about magic items and kind of creating things for your group, and also the subclass that you're working on. So
yes.
we will need to
very excited
definitely talk about that.
Yes, for sure.
But when we're talking about magic items, just to kind of kick things off, I was wondering what inspires you when you're making a custom magic item? Is there anything in particular that will really get you started in a direction?
The biggest thing for me, so if I'm homebrewing anything, it's kind of like, what story is it going to tell? What purpose does it have? I mean, you can always have a +1 sword, and that's still cool than a normal sword. But like, why? What am I adding to the game by having this item? So thankfully, I've had the same table for like 5 years. Like my current one is very well. We are well acquainted with each other. So a lot of what I do, if I homebrew something, it's okay. I know this person likes to do this, so I want to make an item so that we can continue that story. Or I ask them, like, when we're making characters, what's something really cool that you want to do? Like, because everyone talks about what class they can be and then what subclass they can take. But given a magic item some charges, a magic spell that it can do once per day that is it's over the top, but it might save you in that pinch,
Yeah.
I try to make sure that item is telling that story. Balance is a nightmare and a half, but we can get into that if you want. But trying to figure out something that is both able to tell the story you want to tell and then also feels fair. So as a GM, you don't feel like you are all of a sudden being trounced by your own, hubris.
So I do that all the time. Yeah.
Morgan is well acquainted with being trounced. So do you feel like do you just get inspired to make a magic item and then at some point give it to your players, or do you feel like, oh, this player, I saw them struggle this last session, or I saw, they leveled up and they really need this. I mean, what usually is inspires you that way?
It's usually what the party needs, because I don't want to tell my party what classes they have to play, but I don't want them to feel like, if we're running through a pre-made adventure, for example, there's certain assumptions. A party is going to be made up of X amount of players that can do X amount of things. And if I know that they're going to get to a spot that it's just not going to work, a magic item might save their butts, just something as simple as like a ring of levitation. It will float you up for like maybe 10 minutes. I'm not remembering how long that item actually works, but maybe
Sounds
I
right
just
to
go
me.
like, here's,
We'll
for
allow
10
it.
minutes you float so that you can maybe get over a very difficult cliff face, just something that can easily get you from step A to step B. That's like the typical, like, okay, I know they're going to need something. But another thing that I'll do is I'll try to, like, I don't railroad, at least I try not to, but I definitely want to have like those moments that the character has this cool, awesome thing that they did, and I know the item, like, so like there's a concept. I can't remember if it's been formalized or not, but like your character levels up. What if their item levels up with them? So like I often try to make an item that I feel like, oh shoot, this is your anime moment. This is the moment that you're gonna go like full Super Saiyan, and you're gonna like kick ass, take names, all that stuff. So that's the other thing I look for is like, okay, we're at the story point where this item can evolve, level up, whatever you want to call it, and do something cool. And I like building items like that. So
I'm obsessed with that approach. That is 100% my favorite way to do it. We started rewatching Dragon Ball Z, and everything was like, wait, hold on, wait, hold on, wait. Like, I have an idea. I think we've been talking a lot about when they make Go tanks, when it's Gohan and Trunks, and they do the little,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fusion, huh? Yeah.
Yes, that one. And I kept trying to describe it to the group because it's like just I'm the Dragon Ball Z nerd in our group.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to describe it because I was like, I just feel like you guys should fusion. I feel like you guys should merge, and that's how I feel about the items. Is like they should build on each other and like evolve and fuse. And sometimes there are consequences.
If you want to do something like that, look up the concept of Gestalt characters. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
So fun little like concept is, at level 1, you're not actually a level 1 character. You're actually a level 1 monk and a level 1 fighter mixed into one class. You take the highest HP, but then everything else just goes all the way down. So you're not going to double your HP. You can still get, killed by a bunch of goblins at level 1. You're not doubling that. But I would think like the earrings from like later on in that, like that fuse characters together, just like, okay, one of you either controls or both of you controls the character until the magic item effect ends, and you just like, now you are the wizard with a 20 in strength, so you can cast punch, but like, get the idea.
I love
that.
Yeah, that's very cool.
That's fun. Okay, wait, hold on. I'm distracted now thinking about that, and I'm going to go back to our list of questions here.
Yeah, we have a few questions.
I am obsessed with the idea of that. I guess I hadn't considered it. So we do a lot of like evolving magic items. I love that you're talking about story-based and also need-based, because I think that those are both really valid. Yeah. But that story, one of the things that we're doing in the campaign that I'm running, we've got this 2-year-long campaign that's like getting close to coming to an end, and I wanted each character to feel like a hero, like they're a hero in their own right, but like each person can't be like the hero, like that's there's only like there's 5 members, like that doesn't make any sense. So one of the things that we've been doing is a lot of like evolving items, like it started as like a dagger that's stuck to his hand, and then it evolves into a rapier, and then it evolves into something he can remove, and like just sort of that like evolution piece. I think that's a lot of fun. So do you find yourself making items that fill the same niche as existing items you've already created? Or when we're thinking about story-based items or need-based items, like that ring of levitation just kind of coming in that clutch moment, do you feel like you're making a lot of items that overlap with things you've made before, or other things that have already been created by Wizards of the Coast that just like fit your story better?
I use Wizards of the Coast as a template. I mean, how do you balance something without something to like be
True.
your baseline? But I don't think I've ever replicated an item before. I think I've always just gone like, okay, what is like the thing that they need for this situation or can enhance the character. If I've been lucky, I've had someone who like I think I have one player that just is obsessed with the Blade Singer subclass, the Wizard subclass,
Very
which is
cool.
a great
It is a
subclass.
cool.
I love
It
it.
is a great. It's a great one.
It's
Yeah.
fun. It's
Yeah.
really fun. But at this point, I'm just like, okay, I'm probably gonna give him like something that can like a weapon that will act as a spell focus, so he can just constantly have his sword out and not have to worry about anything. So he'll still have his spell book, but like he can cast spells while waving his sword around. Basic idea. And I think. Sorry, I just like I'm losing my thought because I just like why do I have to keep on making an item for that one type of character? But I guess it's always kind of just I want to make something unique each time. I don't like revisiting the same idea. That's kind of with a lot of my homebrew. The problem that I get in when I realize like I've done something like this before, I must throw this away, cast it aside. If Wizard does the exact same thing, I'm like, oh shoot, well I gotta throw that away and cast it aside because I've accidentally made items that are in the Dungeon Master's Guide without realizing, and I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't realize it wasn't there, but it's there. So
Yeah.
I hope that answers the question.
No, like I feel like creatives, we kind of a lot of us have a lot of overlapping thoughts, right? Like not to say that no one's ever had an original idea. Like that's a little nihilistic, although I will go down that route if we want. But like I do think that a lot of us have like really similar trains of thought. We've consumed a lot of the same media. We've read a lot of the same books, and then we get to the DMG and we're like, oh, look at that! Somebody already wrote it, and that language might be better than mine. Or like, oh, now that I've read that, I know how to make it even better. Like I think that it can go either way.
Yeah, and if you actually think about it a lot, I mean, we're getting we mentioned anime, like we get inspired by anime all the time, but like the original creators were also inspired by a couple of things. You might notice very common things like orcs in Dungeons and Dragons, and I wonder where that came from. So like, I have gotten to the point where I'm full say like I'll rip off anime if it doesn't exist in D&D. Let's make it exist in D&D.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
Has there ever been a time you gave like one of your players a magic item and it just didn't work the way you thought it was going to work, or just kind of backfired on you?
Backfired on me and the player. I tried to get a high risk, high reward item out. It was an item called the Scrolls of Naraka, and it's like a set of scrolls that if you read it and it's in Fiendish, it like gave a monk a free key point, and it gave them basically these like curses, like full anime curses all over your hand situation, and you could punch and you got extra range. But if you used it too much, what could happen with it is it would summon a demon, a specific demon. And they didn't use it too much. Their character just died, and it was like, oh shoot, this is bad. The whole point of this is that it attracts a demon, and you're dead now. So a demon rose out of the corpse of the player, and I'm like, well, okay, you can't just be dead for this encounter. So they got to play a demon for a bit and almost slaughtered the party. Well, they could have actually. They didn't know that they could. I didn't give them all the stats. I just said, here, you basically are a really powerful monk right now. And that is like the one backfire because I put in such a high risk that they were putting a lot of faith in the item. Because like, oh yeah, you can do this thing, and it's going to be really cool. And then it didn't work out, and then the party's like, I don't want to fight each other. I'm like, I'm sorry, this is the story. This is what's happening. We want to take a time out and just not fight. And they're like, no, we have to do it. I'm like, okay, you said you didn't want to, but I'm fine with that. If you want to do it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty normal.
Okay, but that sounds like it came out like kind of epic.
Oh no, it was great, and they felt like, oh man, we lost our party member, and it was like sad. We left with the feeling of like remorse, but at the same time, like what's going to happen next? It wasn't like, well, let's go away. It's like, let's figure out what we're going to do next.
Yeah, they didn't get put in the ground. They got put in the wooden boat that got lit on fire and sent out to sea, and it was like everybody got some closure, it sounds like, out of that one.
Yeah.
That's hardcore. So you mentioned hubris, and we just discussed a hubris moment. I often find that I'll make a magic item and it needs more tuning, right? Like I put something together, and I'm so excited it's going to be great, and then it ends up being too strong, or
Yep.
the party finds a way to like use it in situations where it's like, I didn't expect you to do that to the door. Like, okay, here we are. What do you do when you find you have an item that needs further tuning, or you've given it to the player and it is coming off too strong? Like,
So
whoa.
yeah, if it's so what I'm trying to do right now with all my homebrew before I deploy it out there, um, like if we can't all make it to a game session because people have lives, but we can. Most of us can make it. We do a danger room situation. X-Men. A room that doesn't really exist and anything could come out at you from any which way. And I'll like, hey, I want to test something. So I run a monster and I give someone like some homebrew I'm working on, an item, a class, whatever. I'm like, do you want to test this out for me and see how it works? So I like to do that when we have the time. The problem is finding time.
Right.
Because for a lot of people, their spare time is, okay, we're going to sit down, we're going to play, we're going to do D&D. This is what I planned. This is what I'm learning. I know for like a lot of people, it's just like, I don't have any other time to dedicate to that. And that's perfectly fine. Now, if we're in a situation where I wasn't able to test, but I was giving someone an item and I feel like, oh man, they're cheesing me. I am so going to die. Like there's nothing I can do. They're going through all my traps. I didn't think about this. I didn't think about that. Why on earth did I give someone true sight? But
oh, I've uttered those exact words.
Yeah, like why do you? This is the reason why it's not meant for mortals. But if it's in that situation, it is kind of one of those things. As a DM, you kind of have to accept the situation for what it is, because if you pause the game to rework an item mid game, you kind of just told people, like I said earlier, this is what they plan to have fun. And you told everyone, hey, this isn't fun for me in this exact situation. It's not anything you did. It is totally on me. So I let the session play out, and then I'll talk with the person who has it and say, hey, I really need to retune that. It wasn't fair. It wasn't balanced. We're gonna have to rework on that. And unless someone's like dead set on having the most powerful thing in the game, that's when I guess I treat the encounters like they need to be more deadly and start throwing things at them. I mean, you can always homebrew a monster that is, for some reason, immune to magical items, but,
Absolutely. Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
my god, I hadn't thought of that. I'm so sorry for you, Sarah. I feel really bad, but
we almost TPK'd just recently. Are you going to give us a break?
We had like a couple sessions off. One of our monk was getting married, and that's fine. I guess it's allowed. He can miss a couple sessions. And so we had a couple sessions off, and then we came back, and I had done like a month and a half hiatus. And I was like, I'll just give them a combat, a no notice. Some enemies come at you while you're on your airship. And I had done the math wrong and did not calculate that it was possible for them to roll hot trash. Hot garbage all the way around. Yes. So the monk is falling 60 feet per round is what we decided.
He became incapacitated in the air and fell. So like our best, just falling. Like our best fighter.
It was a gazer,
like use his reaction to save himself. Couldn't even do that.
Well, he was stunned. So then I'm going, oh, now if speaking of magic items that like, well, this one backfired. Like that was
it was close. It was close. Yeah,
I'll TPK you guys eventually. But you'll have earned it. You'll have earned it. So what about tuning things up? You mentioned like your monk relying too heavily on the cool demon curses. When you have a player who relies really heavily on a magic item and then it just doesn't perform, are there ways that you enhance it or evolve it? Really, like sounds like maybe that might be a route as well. What do you like to do to tune things up?
Charges usually.
Love it.
Give something that is ridiculous. Like a first level spell once per day is fine. Give it like a couple charges. Make it scale either with the player so it can always stay, or give it like if you give a fighter a wand of fire of magic missile. It's great. They can consistently do range magic damage. But like you could scale that up to do an additional missile on that if they spend a charge. It's probably in the realm that D&D does magic, the spell slot system. We are like trained to think the higher the slot, does more damage, is always bigger, is always better. But sometimes with an item, you can't just, put on a higher level spell on it and call it good. There's some balance, I think, that breaks with that every once in a while. But if you just go like, okay, you can use the spell more, that's cool. That's better.
Yeah.
So that's what I would prioritize is like if your item does something cool and it's not an always on item, give it something to give it a little bit more. And I've gotten into the mindset of like proficiency scaling for almost everything, since it's the one thing that constantly goes up no matter what class you do. So like as I get stronger, I can do more things, and maybe you can tap into the magic item a little bit more. So that's a tip.
Yeah.
That's my...
That would work really well with each level up too. That would keep it, fairly balanced. You just have another charge, or you can, That's a great idea.
I love the idea of moving with proficiency bonus, because then as we move into like tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, like you're gonna see that natural scaling. I'm always thinking about how am I gonna put it in D&D Beyond, because like that's I don't know if that's got you like in an absolute chokehold the way it does with our party, but it's really like that's the one.
I'm old school. Everything I do is written down, either in a Word doc, or like I don't remember the program, and I used it years ago, but I used to like make little magic cards and hand them out to them. So like, here you go. Here's your physical thing, and keep track of that. And that was actually a big thing, because I mean, I don't know if you know this or have experienced this. Not know, but experienced this. The amount of times I've given a magic item to someone and they forgot they had it, because it was written down on their character sheet. Yeah, it happens.
I'm so guilty of that. Yeah.
You write it down, you have it there, and if you were looking at that, maybe you would notice, but normally you're looking at what spell you're going to do, what weapon you're going to use, how many hit points you have. I'm at 2 death saves. Oh man, this is really bad. I forgot this weird magic item I can use while I'm doing death saves can bring me back up to 1 HP, because I'm not looking there. Well, if I say, okay, have your character sheet ready. I don't care if you have digital or physical. I don't care. But make sure you also have the items I gave you. And then they physically, oh, look, this thing that's here. That's...
You have a very organized party, and I have a lot of respect for that.
No, they are not organized. I
was like, how do they remember their cards?
I'm game dad, so I have to remember things. I make sure that they are aware of everything they have, and I give them their opportunities. Like I have tried to get combat so streamlined that I go, okay, what's your movement? What's your action? What's your bonus action? You got to know what those are when your turn starts. And then because you run this game for 7 years, you start to like remember things, and you're like, well, I know your character can do this or do that. So again, I'm just game dad. I just know things, and it would be nice to get to the point where I'm not remembering everything, but at the same time, they don't need to. They know how to play their character. I know how to run monsters that are ridiculous. So that's where we are.
Our group is like, after every session, I remember that the rogue has, I give him a monocle that gives him advantage, like a reticle, again, anime inspired, a reticle monocle that gives him advantage so that he gets sneak attack, even if he's not in a position to get sneak attack. He never uses it. Totally forget.
Maybe like 50% of the time.
Yeah. So like, if you ever want to think about like balancing and am I doing it right, have you looked in Tasha's optional features?
Ooh, I mean, like through some, because there's that new one for Rogue that he has been using actually quite a lot, where he uses no movement.
You just aim. That's, I mean, that I would have created an item that does that exact same thing, but they just made it an optional feature. I
think it's great.
Yeah, if you just literally take the time to aim your weapon, your throwing knife, your bow, your whatever, let's give you advantage. Let's make rogues cool. They should be able to do their abilities at all times. It's just, how you're doing it. Of course, you can let me a swashbuckler, and then you always you don't have to worry, because you'll always get to use your sneak attack damage. So
yeah, you made all of us monocles with all different abilities, and I play a warlock.
Dorks.
Yeah,
I play a warlock, and I really wanted the monk ability where you can extract aspects. I wanted that, and so she made me a monocle that I can see like resistances or immunities, and I never used it. I've used it.
I was gonna say, when's the last time you've used that?
Well, the
A
problem
Balor
is
fight like a year ago.
the problem is if we are meeting like an NPC and I pull it out to look at it, it sometimes will kind of tip off the rest of the party that I'm going to attack. And I think it gets them in the wrong mindset of let's just talk. This is just a talking, like negotiated. They instantly are like, oh, we're gonna attack, and then they get kind of excited. And so I have to be careful whenever I take it out. So, but it's great. It's great.
You mentioned playtesting things in your battle room. I think that that's absolutely brilliant. And I know also you've got a subclass in the works, a bardic subclass in the works, and you've got actual playtesters for that, which is like, it's very cool. I think that's very cool.
Yeah.
How do you even get started on that?
Okay, so pandemic happened.
Right. Sure.
And so I'm Black and I'm queer, and I should. That's a random thing to spew out without the context. I'm making a class based off of Vogue. If a lot of people are familiar with the concept, they've seen at least Madonna's video. You might have seen Paris is Burning. But the big thing that I've always enjoyed the concept of Vogue. Unfortunately, I'm stuck in the Midwest where we don't have nice ballrooms to vogue in. Our drag scene's finally getting up there, at least locally. I won't say all of the Midwest, but we're finally getting something fantastic out here. But I've always been fascinated, and I loved it, and I've looked into the culture and the history, and I've been learning, and I've talked to people who do it, and it's just exciting. And as the pandemic happened, HBO had a show called Legendary, which actually has people competing, various houses competing against each other. And I just was fascinated in seeing it in this format, because if you look it up on YouTube, you'll see mostly individuals going against, like, it's one-on-one and or against the judges, because the judges are always the ones that will get you a 10 or they'll chop you. And so I just got going, like, how do I put Vogue into D&D, and what's the most closest thing to a Vogue? And I mean, instantly it's the Bard. The Bard is is going to Vogue. They have music and art and movement. And so what started that was, how do I translate that? And actually, what people are seeing right now, I have people beta reading and testing it, but what people are seeing right now is actually probably over a year and maybe a year and a quarter old. It is not something that I was lightly willing to give out, because it is something that I've been very invested in. I want it to be, I don't want to say perfect. I don't believe in perfection. I don't think it's actually obtainable. I believe you can get the best that is humanly possible, and whatever's next is your view of perfection or whatever, but I don't think I can get that with what this is, but I want to get this to the best that's humanly possible. So I've always been like keeping it close to my chest, making sure that I felt comfortable. And now I'm getting a lot of good feedback, and that's fantastic. I'm getting a whole bunch of people that aren't familiar with it, which is always fun to kind of go like, okay, you don't know what I'm talking about, but you're willing to be interested in it, and you're like looking into it. So at least, hey, I'm introducing people to a concept. But what's interesting is the ones that come out and like, I don't know what this means, but I'm really interested in this thing. That can you elaborate more? Can you explain more? Because it's not just an introduction to a subclass. It's not just like, well, I'm going to make let's say I wanted to make a vampire patron warlock. You know, that's cool, right? But everyone culturally can kind of say, I know what vampires are, I know what the patron system is, I know what a warlock is. If I told you what a voguing bard is, you'd be like, oh, okay, so like, am I in front of magazines? Am I very fashionable? What is that? And the answer is yes, and then some. But like, it's like a whole cultural experience on top of a mechanic experience, and trying to translate that. And I mean, I think I have a good hold on it. We'll see. Well, I've gotten a lot of positive. People feel good about it, and you know, that makes me feel a certain kind of way, a very positive way.
How do you feel about when we talk about like the roots of drag, which are really heavily based in with Black queer folks in particular, and it has since expanded, right? We're seeing a lot of white folks participating. We're seeing women participating. It has really expanded, and I think that it's a challenging space to be in, because it really skirts appropriation quite often,
Yeah.
or fully goes into it, right?
Well, so if we look in the history of drag, I mean, historically speaking, there had to be straight guys doing it. I mean, Shakespeare, right? Like
Yeah.
that is drag. Dressing up as a woman in a very dramatic fashion to go on stage and tell stories. I'm sure some of them were queer in some way or another, but I can't imagine all of the Globe Theater was, gay, So historically, there is definitely precedence of it, but like what we view as drag today and culturally, I mean, there's always been a white presence. It's always from the pageantry scene. That's really drag did kind of like pull from female impersonation to pageantry, and like Vogue itself came heavily from racism in the drag scene in New York. Paris is Burning is a good example of like seeing how there is a large Latino African community that started Vogue as it is today. Drag is incredibly complicated. Not the I don't know, maybe it was the latest RuPaul. They had a straight guy on there, and I was fascinated. One, he didn't go home right away, which good for him. I mean, if you're gonna be here, you gotta like, you can't just be the first one that leaves if you're gonna be the first straight guy on there. But like, it was I was sitting there going like, there are contexts within the queer community that straight people just don't get, and there's like, is it stepping on the field of like, you'll never understand because you're not part of this community? Somewhat, yes. But does that mean we exclude you? I don't want to feel like I should exclude anyone from anything. I feel like anyone can participate. I mean, if you have the idea, the understanding of appreciation, not appropriation, maybe that's like a good way we can kind of look of like, now women participating in drag. And I mean, there's drag kings. Drag kings have always been around, but women participating, actually I'll say AFAB participating as feminine, that is newish. We haven't really seen that much, and that's fascinating to me, and I would like to explore that more. I mean, I can't be an ambassador of anything, I'm just one person. So from my point of view, I would love to see more cishet people interested, but I don't want to all of a sudden start seeing, it's really hard because I don't want to say, oh, you can't just do drag and be the character or whatever, because like I said, that's always happened. I mean, if you ever watched, oh shoot, who always does? I mean, if you think of like, I want to say Eddie Murphy, but not Eddie Murphy. No. Oh, actually, the reason why I'm thinking of Eddie Murphy is, well, yeah, there's white chicks, but actually what I was thinking of is Coming to America, the first one. Arsenio Hall does drag in the scene when they're looking for a woman in, like, they're looking for like a wife for Eddie Murphy's character in a bar, and one of them is Arsenio Hall drag talking to himself and Eddie Murphy's character. And it's just like, okay, this is funny. This is like they're performing a joke here of like, oh, they just can't handle American women one way or another. But it also could be viewed as like harmful because this is like a stereotypical masculine, maybe this is not a woman, and there's the fear, and it's a fine line. There's no easy answer to that. I guess what I want to point out with Vogue is that there are notably straight people who do Vogue. It's not a explicitly queer thing. It is inherently, innately queer, but it is not exclusively queer.
Yeah, I appreciate you going on this dive with us because I'm enjoying the heck out of this. So when we're thinking about now all of that's a lot, right?
Yes.
To wrap into a subclass.
Yes.
So when we're thinking about how your playtesters and how future players will approach, this is your baby. Like, you've been working on this for, I mean, that's a long time to really get committed to a piece. How do you feel about, and if this is too personal, you can say no. How do you feel about this potentially reaching the masses? Like, when this goes a little broader, are you just excited to see your work out there, or do you have a lot more complicated feelings around watching those custom pieces go out into new hands?
I'm fine with people seeing it, touching, interacting with it. It's kind of the weird thing is, like, I know I'll be the author of it, you know, it will be my baby, but like I feel as soon as anything that you want to call art touches the world, it's not yours anymore. Like, you can be the one that created it, but it's no longer yours. It's whoever touches it. They can make it whatever they want. And I mean, this is like my this is my, like, think of it like Harry Potter. I don't like J.K. Rowling in the slightest. I absolutely think she's, sorry, I'm going to trash on her, but I feel like there's reasons to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. You're in good company here.
Yeah.
Well, J.K. she's done a lot of things that are clearly harmful to many communities. We can talk about how harmful she is to trans people, but like, if you read a lot of the passages in Harry Potter and like go to anything that she describes as someone as ugly, she'll call them overweight, like, constantly. It's like how she views overweight people as like, oh, they are disgusting. And I'm like, this is problematic in a different way. And I can say, if you grew up on Harry Potter, which I was the right age for it, I was like the age that the kids were as the books were coming out. I did not become a fan, but that's a whole nother thing. I am the weird nerd that is not the Harry Potter fan, nor am I actually a Lord of the Rings fan. And I know that, like, gets my credit, like, into question, but I don't care. I'm doing my own thing. But like, you can, as a person, have grown up on that, still enjoyed the stories that were told, the characters that were created, and like enjoy the art piece and separate it from JK and go like, you know, I don't like her. I would say now, as adults, maybe not support anything that puts money into our pockets. But if you have an old, copy of the book, it's not making her money anymore. It's just sitting on your shelf. Don't throw it away if you enjoyed what memories it gave you and experience it gave you. So if someone takes my work and they really enjoy it, but maybe they don't enjoy one thing about me, that's fine. They can do whatever they want with it. They can live it. They can live it. They can love it. They can hate it. You know, like, I don't care.
So
that's really interesting. I was a diehard Harry Potter fan, and got a tattoo that is the Deathly Hallows symbol and the Triforce from Legend of Zelda kind of mashed together. And it was like the summer before all of her real turfy comments started coming out, and I just, like, my heart broke because then in retrospect I'm going back and going, oh man, look at all this problematic language that I really internalized. So it was helpful for me as a youth, like growing up and understanding, like, learning fantasy, being from a not really very fantasy forward family and getting to experience this world. And it was problematic, and now I'm having to unpack this as an adult and kind of step back, and like, even some of the characters' names. There was a TikTok where one of the guys was talking about, like, what'd you name the black guy? Kingsley. Like, oh, Shacklebolt. Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah. No, it's a trip, man. I mean, like, kill your idols. Just do it. Yeah. They don't matter. That's why my idols are cartoon characters, because I mean, you know their history. It's all animated for you.
I love that.
So your elements for the subclass, are you willing to share any yet, or any? Are you trying to keep it secret, or?
I mean, it's for the sake of, like, I don't want someone to just steal all my ideas, and if someone does, I can track that down.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So I call it the College of the Five Elements, because it comes from the term the five elements of Vogue. I was thinking of calling it the College of Vogue, but I'm like, no, that's a little bit too much. I don't know if the term is trademarked in that way, but I'm sure someone would say something. So like, let's do a little bit. Actually, based on some feedback, I'm probably also going to change its name to the College of the Ballroom, because someone mentioned, oh, I thought it was like the version of the monk, or the four elements monk. So I was going to be a bard with with 5 elements, and I'm like, okay, I get it, I understand it, but I'm thinking about it. It's one of those things that name isn't super super important. So there are basically, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 things that this subclass is trying to convey. The first thing I want to give the impression of is called reading, which I'm sure we've heard of reading. The library is open and all that. I basically want to give you as a character the ability to read the room, to insult people heavily, and by that I'm manipulating the vicious mockery cantrip. So it does something mechanically. Effectively, most cantrips only affect one creature. This goal of this is to affect multiple creatures. You are reading the room, so to speak.
Fun.
I got to figure out how to do that in a way that's not so overpowering, because I already got some feedback going like, man, you're able to do a lot of this, and vicious mockery, if it hits, because it's a save or suck one, but if it hits, it does a lot. It can hurt not a whole lot because it's D4s, but to give disadvantage on all these guys' attacks. But at the same time, doesn't that sound cool? Like, you're literally in the room and you're just like, I'm reading this monster up and down. I am dragging them through the mud, and you're just like the wording of vicious mockery is so nice because they don't have to understand you. They just have to understand a language. So like, it doesn't matter what you're saying. It's like someone coming up to you who's speaking like French and just cussing you out, or at least like giving you, a dress down. And you're like, I don't know what they're saying, but I feel insulted. And that's what I want like the feeling to be,
I sense it.
Yeah.
That's that open up such good role playing moment too. Vicious mockery is fantastic. Yeah.
Yep. Then after that, we jump straight into the actual concept of Vogue, which uses the 5 elements, which the 5 elements are hand performance, floor performance, dips, spins and dips. You might hear it called death drop. In voguing, you do not call it a death drop, you call it a dip. Just culturally, they're not the same thing. Visually, you'll think they are, but they are not the same thing.
Is that Argentine Tango that does the death drop?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We learned that in ballroom in college. Like, I had to take a PE class, so and we learned those are fun.
Yep. So let's see, spins and dips, catwalk, which is like you're walking down the catwalk, duck walks, which is the Russian kick dance where you're like, they dip down and they kick their legs out. It's like that, but like smaller, and you're moving a lot faster. So I highly recommend a Google search to see how they do it, because like there are people who are crazy good at it. Hand performance, and then I said floor performance, which is just mostly using your legs on the ground. So to visualize this, it's using a certain amount of a resource to start voguing on the battlefield. And when you start voguing, anyone who has one of your bardic die all of a sudden gets a bonus. One of it is like you get a faster movement speed because you're like, oh shoot, we're both kind of voguing right now. Like you're both voguing in combat. And the other thing is like kind of it gives you a bonus to some of your saves. And the idea is that you're using both the magic of the movement, but the magic of being a bard to enhance everything about your allies. And that is something that lasts for a minute, and you're just kind of dancing for a full minute. After that, you have to continuously spend a resource to get it going. From there, I introduced the concept of the old way. So actually, I should explain. Vogue is broken up into like three like time periods. What we call the old way, the new way, and now the Femway. They are different types of movements, how they are done, how Vogue was looking. Old way is very supermodel. You walk very powerfully. You have a very kind of like, you're very dramatic. Everything is drama. Every type of movement. It's kind of like what people think if you watch like Zoolander, the blue steel. Like, yeah, that's everything. That's what you're doing all the time as you're doing the old way. And part of the old way, when you competed against someone, is you would do something called pinning, where basically you pin down your opponent so that they can't move, and you block them from like the judge's view. So like, oh, look at me, I'm the bigger person, I'm bigger personality. So there's a method of like pinning down monsters so they can't move away from you. The big thing about this subclass is like most bards are support and they're far away, or they're like kind of in, kind of out. This is supposed to be like something like, I'm very aggressive. I am very much going to get in there and keep you locked down while my allies and I like, beat the living crap out of you. Then we go to the New Way, which the New Way was very flowy, but also like introduced like martial art moves. If you look in the history of Vogue, New Way, I say is probably inspired almost entirely by Willy Ninja, of the House of Ninja. And Willy Ninja is famous for choreographing music videos for various stars. I believe he did Madonna and I'm going to say Beyonce, but that's probably wrong. I don't think it's Beyonce, but doing things like he was the one who did the choreography for it. But like his big thing is he calls himself Billy Ninja because he moves like a ninja. He's silent. He's deadly. He has all these moves type of things. And so like this, I just basically have it that you're so stylish, you move so quick and silently that I have an ability that like kind of stuns you. You get a use out of you learn the hypnotic pattern spell, which if anyone knows anything about that spell, it's pretty good. As a 3rd level spell, it actually can stick with you through the whole campaign. But you learn it and you get a use of it, which I think is like a fun thing to have every once in a while, is a free use of a spell. So like you're always encouraged to have that up and ready and going. And then after the New Way, we have the Femway. Femway is actually described as 2 different styles of movement. I've already said dramatic before, but it's the dramatic style and then the soft style. Soft is very much just flowy dance movements, moving your arms a little bit slower. Like the term femme implies, it's very feminine in movement. So you're going to be, I'm not good at like physically doing it, but like slow movements across your face and your hands, versus dramatic, which very fast, oh, there's my camera. Yep. There we go. But very
that was
fast
as dramatic
movements.
as it needed to be.
Yeah,
dramatic.
exactly.
Very dramatic.
And I have it so you can switch between them quickly, because you should be able to switch very quickly between these 2 modes. But these are we're at late stage, and since bards kind of get their final feature at level 14, I kind of wanted to have it a little more subdued at this point. So this one just gives you a bonus to either dexterity or charisma checks, saving throws. But then you also gain either the disengage action or the dash action as a bonus action, which you would get if you wanted to just be like a rogue. So it's kind of one of those things like you might not fully get up to here, but maybe you want some of these extra like saves bonuses so that you can make sure you're never going to be trapped by, get charmed by anyone or have a good dex save. So it's something that just happens when you start voguing. So it's just kind of adding on your existing earlier features there. So that's my preview.
Wow. That's
amazing.
It sounds so good. So are you going to publish this, or where can people find it, or what are your plans for this?
I will eventually publish it. I can't say where yet. If you've looked into the DM's Guild, I'm not 120% okay with how the ownership rights go for it.
Yeah.
I'm not, and I'm now terrified with putting it on even D&D Beyond for people just to look at, because now if you read the clauses a lot, like really closely, basically they have the rights. Anything you put on there, they have the rights to take. It's theirs for them to use. And I understand why they want to write stuff like that. So like it's kind of one of those things. I think it's like one part, haha, we can farm information. Okay, but I also think another part of it is, oh shoot, we did something incredibly similar to this that's on our website, and they'll accuse us of taking it. So let's just put it in a clause that says, oh no, you agreed to let us do that. Both I think are a little scummy in one way or another, but it's business. So I'm looking for self-publishing one way or another, so that I can put it out there. it will be something that I'm going to get art commissioned for, so that I can actually like say, look at this very pretty thing here that I have created, so that not only is it something that it's cool, but like it's fun to look through. And once I have it published, I mean, I hope that it's a hit. I hope people like it. I hope it's exciting.
It sounds amazing, and I love the idea of rogues coming in and being in the front, but also having that support, like being frontline, but also having that big support element, really like enhancing and making the support more exciting. Because I think a lot of subclasses we end up with support being this sort of like, oh, here you go, there's your enlarge, have fun. Oh, here's your bless, and like, does it save the day? Often, yes, absolutely. But also, like, it doesn't end up being very glamorous, and I think that it should be more glamorous. I love that.
I know our bard personally in our game said they're very support, and they'll pop in, do their inspiration, and then they hide. Then they leave and hide constantly. Remember, I mean, all the time. And so I think, I love that. I love that aspect that they can be in the thick of it with everyone else. That's great.
Yeah, that's the general hope and vibe that I get of this, because I mean, watch some people Vogue, and like, they get into each other's like space so much. They don't care. They have so much attitude. And if I can have someone walk up to, Strahd and go like, oh, I don't give a shit about you, and like, I don't know, I click a fan in his face a couple times and then disengage bonus action, and he's like, oh, well, they disengaged. I can't. And like, the idea is there is like a philosophy to how classes are supposed to behave in D&D, and the bard is like your midline, because their hit die, their abilities, they're not supposed to get too close. But what if they could? And that's part of like what inspired it.
I like that. And is hand dancing, is that similar to tutting?
Yes. Okay. Exactly. So the hands performance, you'll see it very much. Tutting and locking movements. So yeah.
So Logan, thank you, first of all, for joining us and for the deep dive that we did, because I'm so excited about your subclass, and just to kind of see you continue to grow, and we hope that we can be our little like lift up stepping stone kind of moment for you here. And so excited to see that subclass when it comes out. Hope that you're able to find a good publisher there. Do you have any other projects that you're working on, or anything that you'd like to share or promote? We'll have the Sean Evans moment. This camera, that camera. Tell the people what you're working on.
So a lot of what I do, I just post on Twitter. So go follow me there. I'm at Logan the GM right there. So doobly-doo, type, find me that way. I'm also, personally, I've been getting into actual plays lately. Because I love to play games, not just, DM them. So I recently did a game of Delta Green. I don't know if you've heard of the system at all, but it's like a variant of the Call of Cthulhu system. But I did that with a group called Queen's Court Games. You can find them on YouTube, so you can find my game there. It's all posted now. It's 3 episodes. They're about like 3 hours long, so get your headphones in and get ready for the long ride. But there I play Agent Eastman. And it's kind of like the situation that you get in with a Delta Green game is like Men in Black meets X-Files, and dealing with the problems of, oh shoot, turns out the Eldritch horrors are real, but we're the organization that deals with it. So I describe myself like Agent J from Men in Black. So but that was only because we had someone else who was like, yeah, you're very much Agent K. So I'm mostly a freelance agent, so I don't have anything that I'm committed one way or another. Again, that was at Queen's Court Games. Their YouTube, their Twitch, their Twitter. I think they have an Instagram. I don't know. But you can totally find that one there. And I was in the Delta Green Convergence is its name. I will say it was really fun. They tweeted it out, and the guy who created the adventure that we ran like retweeted us, and it was like, oh, okay, that's cool. That's always fun.
Big moment. Yeah, big moment.
So,
well, thank you again for joining us. We've been out of initiative, but we're going to get back into it. So get out there, roll some dice, tell some stories, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Out of Initiative, a podcast from Merely NPCs. For more from Sarah and Morgan, follow them on TikTok at Merely NPCs, or visit them online at merelynpcs.com.